All right, guys, we're back here again. This time we're doing it a little different. Somebody actually requested that we don't do headphones this time. So if there's any audio problems, Jeff, who are we blaming?
That'd be on me. Yes, sir.
But we're here today because we've
headphones mess up my hair. You know,
it does. Yeah. It does. It actually does. And we don't want to mess up your hair.
No, thank you. I appreciate
We've got something going on right now in the fair city of Celina that's kind of a big deal. And we're going to talk about that. But we're going to talk about a lot of things. And I have my cheat notes right here.
Okay.
So before we get started, you guys were here just recently. Do you remember what month that was?
I would say it was somewhere around October. Sounds
October,
right. Yeah.
And that's when you guys came here and we talked about what?
The Vader at that point in time.
That's right. We're not talking about Darth Vader.
No,
very
different.
different.
VATR. Yes, and,
that's right.
and I would say thanks to our community, we really appreciate. And I know I said this then, but I can't say it enough. We always feel the embrace of our community, and that was a time where our community came out. I know that information. It's a presidential election, and a lot of folks never got the information. They'd get to the ballot, they couldn't see what's what, and our community really came through for us and helped our district quite a bit, able to help us with our teacher salaries and staff salaries. So we appreciate the community coming out. It was it's going to be a big help for us this year because our budget gets tighter and tighter every year, and I know we'll talk about that later on, but we really appreciate the embrace of the community and their positive vote for that Vader, and it's going to pay big dividends here as the state keeps compressing our tax rate, so it's going to help us.
And you could have brought anybody with you today, anybody on the show, but you brought Jeff with you. So
yes.
Why'd you bring Jeff?
I was the only one available.
He was the only one available. Yep. Well, that makes more sense.
You should have been in the hot seat this time.
They always say that when there's like two friends or two people and they're hanging out, like the more attractive or handsome guy or whatever it is, always wants to keep someone with him or with her that's maybe not as attractive or something. This is me picking on Jeff right now.
Well, no, he can take the attractive all day, man. I got the shiny head going here.
I was going to ask who is in which role here.
So you mentioned friends and attractive. I'm going, this is not working for me right now.
This is not the bond issue. This is not what we signed up for.
Exactly.
But we do have this bond issue. We did talk about the other stuff back in October. That passed.
Yeah.
That's all done. And we made mention that this was coming up. We knew back then that this was on the horizon. Now here we are. And I have to admit, it sounds very scary if you don't kind of dive into it a little bit and actually learn the details. It sounds like a big, giant, scary bond that's going to cost a fortune. And that's just not really the case, or at least there's more to it than that. And so I want to talk about that just a little bit. Yeah. You guys, were kind enough to agree to come on here and help all of us understand. And so tell me a little bit about this. It's $2.29 billion. Am I correct?
2.295, sir.
$2.295 billion.
Yeah. And
billion with a B.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, help me understand that.
Yeah. Happy to, and we do understand that this is something that our bond committee even had to grapple with, and I think if I could, I would want to start with that bond committee because we had a group of 48 community members. It involved staff members for sure. It absolutely involved parents. We also had city officials. We had longtime residents, folks who'd been a part of previous bonds and things. We also had kids on our community, and that was a pretty special thing too for everybody in the room. And so this bond committee community members had worked together for over 3 months and went through a really strong process. VLK, our architect, was able to help walk us through that and really did a very nice job. Brian Grubbs, our financial advisor, came in and gave information. Our demographer came and gave information. So there was a lot for this committee to digest. And in the end, they unanimously selected the projects that they wanted to take forward, the schools that they wanted to take forward. And out of that, their unanimous decision, they looked and they saw, what the dollar amount was going to be. But they said, as a committee, these schools will address the growth that we're going to have in the next 5 years. And so if I'm going to start with the committee, and Jeff, was not a participant, but he came, just to watch the committee's work. And I think you were as impressed as I was.
It was one of the most fascinating things. I showed up at the very first one because I was supposed to, and to welcome everybody. And the more I listened to it, and the more I just heard the collaboration, I made every meeting because it was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. It was so well orchestrated and put together by VLK, and the community involvement was something that I was absolutely shocked to see. It was wonderful.
So take me back just a little bit. So when would this committee have met? Like, when did all of this kind of start?
Right after the Vader.
Yeah, right after the Vader.
Probably early November. Mid-November.
So it's fairly recent. And then this committee, you said, is made up of 48.
48 folks from our community, including kids. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Every table had one of those groups I just mentioned. They had a parent, they had a staff member, they had a kid, they had a community, people from the chamber that would have supported things, and again, city leaders that were a part of this. But then to the amount. So that was the thing that our community looking to see what it was we were going to need to build. The second piece of things is then the number of schools that we're going to need because of the growth that we have going on. A lot of folks don't know this, but looking at our demographic reports, both ours, but then also what the city is seeing for the growth that we anticipate coming here. Our district of just over 5,500 kids, 5,522 as of last Friday, that we are going to triple in size in the next 5 years, 5 to 6 years. We know we will triple in size in 10 years. And a demographer doesn't usually like to go out too far, but in 10 years, we know that we're going to quadruple in size. And so knowing that 10 years from now, we're going to be looking at somewhere around 25,000 kids in our school district. This bond will not address all of the facilities we need for 10 years from now. What our bond committee chose as kind of a student population that they were looking for, somewhere around 13,000 kids. What's it going to take for us to grow from 5,000 kids to 13,000 kids? What school facilities are we going to need? And then what's the infrastructure we're going to need? And so, to the dollar amount that you'd mentioned up in the front, the great thing about this bond is that every single dollar is going toward the school facilities we're going to need over the next 5 to 6 years. And then also the infrastructure we're going to need to support that, which includes, all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that goes into it, includes all the resources that will go into these facilities. It includes the infrastructure needs that we're going to have around the district, helping to make sure we get fiber all through our community. We have a partnership with the city that I could speak more on to work together toward that. And then the vehicles, the buses, the cars we're going to need. We have a fleet of vehicles for travel, for athletic events, for fine arts activities, and but also for transportation. A lot of our vehicles are well over 200,000 miles on those cars, and so knowing that we're transporting children in those cars, we want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure that they're in good condition, and so the final price tag of all of this, came out to the $2.295, and our bond committee was able to step back and say, but these are the facilities we're going to need. I just was down in Austin last week, and I know we're going to talk about legislative priorities too. But first things first, what do we need to address the growth? And a couple state reps, said something to me about the dollar amount. And when I talked to them about what's on this, and I joked with Matt Shaheen in particular, he said, man, hitting that dollar, and I said, yeah, did you see how much the stadium's going to cost? And he goes, no, tell me. And I said, there's no stadium on this. And now, how much that new administration building? And what's all right, tell me, there's not one on here. This is for the schools and for the infrastructure that we're going to need to address the growth that's coming. It's here now and continuing to come.
So, Jeff, maybe you can help me understand this and help everybody else understand this. But obviously, we kind of understand what it is. We see that big, giant price tag. We understand that there was a process to get this number. This is not just something that we just randomly pulled out of the air. And it is probably very specifically because of the growth. So is it, in fact, the case that by building the schools, that's actually going to make more people come here? Is that
No.
is it? Is
No.
that it? Is
Negative.
that putting the cart before the horse? Or
Negative. negative.
Tell me about that. This is, in my opinion, it's more of a response, but you can clarify
That's
that.
fine. So if you think about what our demographer, we switched demographers a year ago, 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, we had a demographer that would give us the growth numbers, and he was off a little bit, so we brought in a new demographer. I already forgot his name, but he's been pretty much spot on about what we can anticipate the growth. And the whole thing is, if you think about it, it's just math. It's pretty simple. If you look at the demographer and he says you're going to have X amount of people coming in, this many homes being built. Within each home, there's 1.2 children in each home. Within a house, there's 1.5. Within an apartment, there's 1.2. Whatever the numbers are, and you work the math out. Then you say, well, I've got this many more students coming in because there's this many more lots that are on the ground, which means there's this many homes being built, which means there's as many closings, etc. It's all math. And then you come out. That means based on these homes that are being built, based on the lots that have been bought, been sold, because of the tollway extension, because of just all the massive growth, I'm gonna have X amount of students. If I've got X amount of students, that leaves me in the negative of buildings in which to put children. So then you figure out how many. Then you look at the ages, the demographics of the age, and we go, I need this many. For every 4 or every 2 middle schools, I need a high school. For every 4 elementaries, I need a middle school. And every elementary school's got a functional capacity of 700. Let's say maximum capacity of 750. Are those right numbers?
That's about right.
Yeah. So I have functional capacity and I have capacity. So when I've got schools that are busting at capacity, I need more buildings for more kids because I got more kids coming. It's all math. And when the committee was meeting, the demographer says, here's what we anticipate coming to your city. Based on that, here's how many buildings you need. Here's how many elementaries you need. Here's how many middle schools you need. Here's how many high schools you need, just to get through this growth spurt. And typically, so far, he's been pretty right on with his numbers.
So if I were to sit here and say that because of the fact that you're building all of this, you're contributing to the growth. I do believe, though, there is something to be said for the fact that people do make their decisions to move to a city like Celina based on the quality of your ISD and stuff like that. So maybe it's more of a testament to the fact that we've got a great ISD right now. So you've got to take that blame, right?
And a great community too.
You've got to take that blame and a great community.
Yeah.
But it's not the sheer fact that we're making more seats available at the table, building more, schools. That's not the driving factor to the growth. We're responding to the growth.
That's the intent. Yes.
We've got to keep up with all these housing developments that are going in. Because when you look at the number of homes that are being built, or pads are being sold, and you look at a map of the city, and you see all these developments that are coming in, I doubt these people are 65 years old that are moving out here. These are all young people who have kids.
Lots of kids.
Yeah, lots of kids.
Maybe the Del Webb, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
but
maybe,
no, but to that too. And I've had a couple of folks who've said that to me that we will be driving the growth by building these schools. The schools are in response to growth, and honestly, the Dallas North Toll Road is going to have quite a bit to do with folks coming in here. The fact that I know your listeners would agree with this, that certainly it's great. We are proud of what our kids are doing in our schools. I'm very proud of what our staff does and the love that we pour into our kids and the things we talked about last time we were here. Again, our kids are thriving. Part of the reason our kids are thriving is because the growth has enabled us to also bring about more opportunity for our kids. We have programs that just a few years ago we didn't have, and we will have programs with the passage of the bond. We don't have an orchestra program right now, but we have kids and families that want their kids to participate in orchestra. And in addition to that, an orchestra with a solid band, which we have, right? 3 years state champs in our band program. Those kids are thriving because our numbers are increasing. Our band director is able to do more things with the kids that he has because he has a bigger band. It makes a bigger sound. It adds to everything that's happening. But when you get an orchestra program and a top band that we have, next thing you know, you also have symphonic orchestra. Yet another thing that can come because of the opportunities we have. We've got our girls soccer team is competing in 2 days for their 4th state championship in a row.
Wow.
And 10 years ago, we didn't have a soccer program. So you see things like that. I'm going to take it away from athletics. Mention the fine arts. We have students who just this year, since we were here, we've won a couple state championships since we were last year. And another program that I don't think gets enough credit is that we have a robotics program that took three teams of kids down to state to compete in state robotics this year, and one of those three teams won state. 2 years ago, we didn't have a robotics program. And when you don't have a critical mass, it's hard to build a robotics program. But when you've got kids that are asking for new programming and have these varied interests, then we're going to put those things out there for our kids, and our kids are thriving. The opportunity that's going to come because of these facilities we're going to be able to build with a second high school coming now, it enables us to take a look at all of our career technology programming that we have. The addition that's going on at the high school right now is bringing in some really cool programs in the health sciences and the law programs. And then one of the more exciting things is to bring a culinary arts program into this district with the addition that's going on at the high school right now. If not for the support of our community in 2019 saying that we want to take that high school from a 1,500 student capacity high school to a 3,000 student capacity high school with the programs that our kids are going to want as we continue to grow, without that foresight in 2019, we wouldn't have culinary arts coming aboard. We wouldn't have a place for those kids. We wouldn't have a place for the kids that are looking to get into law. Our ag mechanics program is just thriving and taking off with the facilities that we're going to be providing for these kids and that have already brought in. And then, the bond, that last bond 2019 helped our board to be able to bring in instruments for all of our kids that as our band program grew, but also new instruments, because a lot of our instruments were 15 years old. And it's those kinds of supports that when folks are looking to go and make a decision on this bond, to think about, okay, so what have we gained since 2019, and think of the things that we're going to be able to gain over the next 5 years, knowing that we've got a second high school we've got to put on the ground. We've got 2 more middle schools that we will be putting on the ground. Each of those middle schools, they're going to have now an orchestra program in those middle schools to feed what we have at the high school and what's going to be going on.
So all of this stuff going on, and obviously there's a ton going on, and it sounds like it's being managed well. It's being, the kids are being well taken care of, meaning that a lot of new interest programs. Yeah. Clearly, we're winning a lot of titles, and academic and
our kids
athletics.
Thrive whatever we throw at them.
100%. Yeah. So we've got this great stuff going on. We've got this need now for $2.295 billion. But Jeff, talk to me about how is this going to impact me, the average person who's out here paying my taxes. And I do have a child in the school district, and I obviously want really, really good things for her. I want the best, actually. Okay, so I'm okay with this, even if it meant that I'm going to pay a fair amount more. How do you put a price on that, right? But how is this going to impact your average taxpayer? Are we going to see our taxes go up tremendously, or what is that situation?
So that's what one of the key takeaways when I was attending the bond committee, when the number of 2.2 with the letter B behind it, period, it was hard for me to grasp my head around. So based on what Brian Grubbs, our financial advisor, has told us, at 2.29, right at 2.29, that there will be a zero tax increase to Huron Lines. There'll be zero tax increase to Tom McGlesko, Jeff Gravely. It's all the growth that's coming in that's adding to our tax base. So even though the ballot will say, and this is another topic of discussion, the ballot will say this will result as a tax increase for you. It's not resulting in a tax increase for you. It's resulting in a tax increase for the community, because as more people move in, the more property taxes go up, property values go up, and things like that, your tax base goes up.
And the business base that's coming to us.
The business base goes up. So it is a tax increase, but not to you. So there'll be zero. You will not pay one more penny.
The impact on me then, so I see this $2.295 billion, and I get a little concerned, because automatically that means, well, that's coming from somewhere, but it's not riding on the backs of what we have right now. It's the fact that we have all of these people coming in, so now that can be minimized, or essentially you're saying
spread the payment, spread the wealth, however you want to put it.
Right.
Now, if your property tax goes up, I can't do anything about it.
Totally separate deal, though, and I can
Yeah.
speak to that 100%.
Yeah.
That's completely separate deal.
So if your taxes go up, it's not because of the bond.
Right. I gotcha. So, and I know you guys, you're allowed to present the information. You're not necessarily allowed to be for or against it. So I'm not going to put you on the spot with that. But just for the record, I don't know if you guys have seen the city council candidates, but I've had each one of them in here, and I ask each of them, are you allowed to take a side on this issue? And from the mayor on down, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
And so they were very cautious. The mayor's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they had a very political way of saying essentially that, like, listen, if you want your kids in portable buildings and without all of the technology, then I would say don't support this. But if you want your kids in, the really, really good stuff with the best technology and the best, learning environment, etc., then support it. So they kind of gave that political answer. So are they right about that? Is that, I'm not asking, I'm not putting you on the spot, but would you say that what they're saying is right?
Well, I would say that the biggest thing that we want is for our voters to be informed voters as they go forward, and I think our city officials want the same thing for that. So I think they're talking about a specific thing that might be near and dear to their heart. The thing that I would say to our public, and I think this was to your question a second ago, about if you don't have children in the district, starting with the folks who do have children in the district, some of the facts include the fact that every single school will be impacted by this bond. Every single kid will be impacted by this bond, whether they're in school now or they're soon to come, because part of the proposal is that this bond would also allow us to do updates at each of our campuses. And you could say, well, Bothwell Elementary School is brand new, first year opening. What do you need to do there? We may not need to do much there, but over the next 5 years, different things are going to need different attention. And if we maintain all of our facilities right now as they go, then they can last longer. Our kids and our families can feel like they're not missing out. Well, if you went to, elementary 10, which, was going to come as part of this, if you go to elementary 10, well, they've got this technology, that tech. We want to make sure all of our families in Celina ISD are having the same learner experience whatever campus they're going to. Safety enhancements at every campus. Things happen. We just, had something else happen in a community not too far from us. And, we're always learning about the things we're going to need to make sure we're enhancing safety and security. Every single campus will constantly get upgrades through time. But I think to someone who also, again, doesn't have children in the in the district, but sees these schools, I think our community can look at the fact that when we bring schools into their community, or when they're going to be living in a neighborhood that has a school in it, they're going to want that school to be updated. They're going to want to have a nice school that's in their neighborhood, and a school that's drawing the types of folks we want to have coming here to Celina, who want to be part of the community, who want to be engaged. And we keep looking for ways that we can engage all members of our community, whether they have children or not. So I think, again, without campaigning for the bond, I'm wanting to make sure folks are understanding that this is, you keep bringing up the dollar amount, and I understand that, but I would focus more on the fact that we're talking about 11 schools that we're going to need to build to address the growth as we triple in size in the next 5 years. Even in the sixth year of this, we might still have a project that's being finished, a school that's being finished, but it will start in 5 years' time. So all 11 schools, and I know you've got that handout.
I've got my cheat sheet here.
But you can see all those schools along the top, and when people see that we're talking about 11 schools, and then on top of it, that not every school is going to be built just in the next year. And so our bond committee, just like in 2019, they've put in consideration for inflation. If it's a school that's going to be built a year after another, that's going to be probably the price on that is going to be about 12% higher, because we put in a 1% per month inflationary standpoint. And people could say, well, inflation is not going to be 12%. We don't know that. And in the 2019, our community said we want to build in a 12% inflation for each school, as for each year before a school is likely going to need to be built. And at first, money was free. Mortgage rates and interest rates were very low in 2019. But then we went through a pandemic, and man, the inflation prices went way up. We had a lot of cost savings early on, and that's something else that's in the literature and what we put online, where folks can go and see the projects that we were able to complete off the 2019 bond dollars because we had savings in inflationary costs early on. It allowed us to buy a little more property because land's never going to be cheaper than it is right now. It allowed us to do updates at all of our campuses. It allowed us to do some safety enhancements. It allowed us to buy buses. So anything that the community says they approve, which is everything that's on our literature and again on the website, as long as we're using any tax dollar savings that we get, and if we would love it if we're able to have enough stewardship and savings as we go that we might even be able to squeeze another elementary school out of this if inflation doesn't exceed that 12% rate. But also some folks have asked me, well, what happens if the growth doesn't come? To which it's easy answer. If the growth doesn't come, then we don't have to build as fast. But again, we would want to make sure that we had inflationary considerations in there so that you as a taxpayer aren't saying, well, look, you told me you were going to be able to build this building, and we want to make sure we're able to deliver on that. In 2019, for all the projects that the community approved on the 2019 bond, we've been on time and under budget on every single one of those projects, even with the huge inflationary costs. And so, we take this very seriously, and our community committee took it very seriously in sending this forward and said, these are the facilities we're going to need. Unanimously, this is what they brought forward to the board, and again, unanimously, the board approved that. So we will deliver on what we promised if this is what the community says they want to do.
Wouldn't it be easier though for you? And this is I'm kind of sidestepping just a little bit because as I'm hearing all of this, you've got this so just entrenched in your thinking, and you just live this, you breathe this, and I know, Jeff, you do too. And
you want the job, do the job.
I'm sure the entire board does, but what in the world is it that motivates you to work so hard to deliver something like this? Because you could really just kind of take a step back a little bit and maybe not work quite as hard and not be so passionate about it. There's not a thing in the world that says you have to be here today. And I know you're leaving here to go over to City Council to do it again. You're coming to an event tomorrow night that I'm going to be at. What in the world, just personally, what in the world is it that motivates you to do this?
That's the simplest answer in the world. And I'm going to actually use a personal experience we had together, which you were at Moore Middle School not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And thank you again for that. And to what I'm speaking to your audience, that Moore Middle School hosted a career day a couple weeks ago. And Ron, like a lot of other folks that we had that came in, shared their story and their passion for what they do to stir up interest in our kids. And it was neat for me to get a chance to see you work with kids. You put me on the microphone there, but
that's right.
Man, seeing that light go off for our kids, I've been saying this for a while, and the mayor now has taken this. He does quote me on it, but growth is opportunity, and it's opportunity for our community. And I think as a taxpayer and someone who lives in this community and shops in this community and dines in this community, I want a good sandwich shop, right? And it's neat that critical mass comes for that. But for our kids, man, to see our kids, we have great kids in this community, and the things that light a fire for them, the things that build an interest for them, all the things that we've been able to do because of the facilities that our community wants for their kids, for what our board wisely does to help outfit our schools, again, as good stewards also about making sure that our kids have the things that they need, and creating those opportunities for kids. And I gotta say, I get such a kick out of how much our kids are thriving. We throw something at them, and I said it, that our kids thrive at whatever we do. I mean, 12 state championships in the past 5 years. And that's
it's
just
amazing.
team state championships.
Absolutely
and
amazing.
it's been in the academics, it's been in the fine arts, and it's been in athletics, and that just says a lot about things.
Right. And Jeff, you serve on the board right now. You're not up for re-election right now, but your time's coming soon. So talk to me from you get paid nothing to serve on the board.
Whoa, what?
You're still waiting on that check?
Heard there's a check at the end.
Still waiting on that. It's not coming.
Okay.
So your payoff must come through the similarities to what Dr. Tom was just talking about. There's got to be something in it that motivates a person to step forward from the community to serve on a board like this. And Dr. Tom's not doing this by himself. He's got a lot of help and a lot of support around him, a lot of good people. And so I'm curious from your perspective, being a board member, not on the payroll, so to speak, etc. And I don't think money would motivate anybody sitting in this room right now to do anything that we do. We do it because we love this community, we love its kids, etc. But what in your case, what motivates you to do this? And by the way, how many years have you been on school board right now? Because I understand this is a point of much contention. It's
not contention. It's called confusion.
Confusion, right?
This is my 15th year.
See, and that's why.
Yeah, it's 15th year.
15th year.
I think Kelly's a year before me, and Chuck's a year after me. I think that's right. None of us can remember. And anyway, but
it's been a minute.
I would bet on those numbers. Anyway,
Time flies when you're having fun.
yes. So what motivates me to do this? So. I've always wanted to be involved, and when I moved to Celina in '97, I got involved, and I met some wonderful people, who are leaders of this community, and those people are now no longer leaders of the community because they've passed the torch, they've passed the baton. I watched my dad. I'm gonna try to get through this. I watched my dad pour his heart out to our community when I was growing up, and I learned from him to be a servant.
Right on.
With nothing to gain, just try to do the best you can and love on everybody and try to do the best you can. And so my motivation is just how I feel at the end of not any particular time that, hey, we did a good job. We did the best we could. I get my motivation watching kids graduate. I get my motivation watching kids hoist a trophy. I get my motivation from watching kids who might have just lost an event, but I know they poured their heart into it and they did the best they could. To try to be the example and just be a servant. And that's why I really enjoy it. My wife, who probably won't listen to this, so I can say this. She asked me many times, "Why do you still do this?" Right. And my kids, "Dad, why do you still do this?" I said, "Because I love the servant. I love serving, and I love helping others in whatever capacity I can."
Absolutely.
We played a joke of my oldest on April Fools. We were out in Sedona. I said, "Hey, I've been offered a job. We're moving to Flagstaff." And my oldest immediately goes, "No, you won't do it. You're too ingrained. You're too ingrained. You love serving on that board so much."
I like it.
So it's just being a servant.
I love it. That's awesome. So I happen to have in my little cheat sheets here, and I know that we're in a bit of a time constraint. I keep looking at this clock because I want to be sure I get you guys back on the road in time. I know y'all got something very important to go do leaving here, but one of the things that I have here is the proposed legislative priorities. Okay? That's a lot of big words.
Sure.
Talk to me about this.
Well, I'm going to say one last thing about the bond, but as a transition into that we have a state legislature that has been, talking for a couple of years now about some priorities that they have that I think deeply impact the public education. I think they deeply impact the 90% of the students in the state of Texas who go to public schools. And so we want to make sure that we got a chance to go down to not just advocate for public schools, but to absolutely advocate for the things that are impacting our school district. One of the things that impacts our school district, again, about to come back to the bond piece of things, is that the state keeps compressing our tax rate. And as they keep compressing our tax rate, it's making it harder and harder and harder for us to be able to generate the revenue that we need to generate to make sure that we're able to staff these buildings and put in the supports that we need for our kids, that are separate from the bond dollars piece of things. They will continue to keep compressing, but in the meantime, also, we've become a property wealthy tax district, and because of that, a lot of our local revenue from our taxpayers is being sent back to the state. And this year it'll be, over at very little, at the least about $1.3 million of local tax revenue that's going back to the state. One last thing on the bond: not only can we do this work with the growth that's coming and with our existing tax rate, every dollar that's generated from a bond proposed bond referendum stays in Celina ISD. The state can't touch that. The only way we can fund the schools that we're going to need to build to address the growth and to outfit the schools, to equip the schools, the only money we get to do that is from a local bond. The state doesn't give money toward new facilities. The state doesn't give money toward the things that we're going to need to buy to outfit our schools, to equip our schools, to give our kids the things that they're going to need. And so knowing that the state won't do that, and knowing that they're chipping away at our dollars, we have to go and advocate to Austin to help us on the maintenance and operations side. And so, again, just a last emphasis that, again, not as a campaign, but to give good information. If someone's wondering, well, if I vote for this bond, will those tax dollars then get taken away and go to the state? No, every bond dollar stays local. And that's the one way that you as a taxpayer can say, I want to invest in my schools and I want my tax dollars to go to our schools. State can't touch those dollars, but they can come in and keep monkeying with our maintenance and operations side of things. And so we wanted to go to Austin, and knowing that this is the second legislative session where Governor Abbott was making a really big push for school vouchers, we wanted to be able to go down there. And I have been championing our officials who haven't responded yet in doing this down in Austin. They've responded to me, but they haven't. I keep championing them. We all understand the governor is going to get his vouchers. That's the Senate has a plan to support vouchers for parents. The House has its plan. They're not too far apart. It's very likely this is going to go through this time. And the governor primaried all these other officials that didn't vote for it in the previous session, despite four special sessions. And what I have been saying to every representative, every senator that I'm able to speak to, including our local reps, is I understand this voucher program is important for your governor, for your party. Fund schools first. Fund public schools first. As I said, 90% of the kids attending school in the state of Texas are attending school in public schools. And when you say that schools are broken, you start trying to sell some kind of a narrative out there in the public that public schools aren't doing good things. Come up to Celina and see how our kids are thriving, and see the good things that our kids are doing. See the good things that our teachers are doing. I haven't said enough about what our teachers are doing in the classroom. Our kids would certainly do real well if we weren't around, because we have good families that are bringing good kids into our schools. But the teachers and the coaches and the directors that we have in all of our program, we're doing really good things here in this school district. And don't go selling that narrative out there in the public that our schools aren't doing well. So we wanted to go down to Austin and make sure that we got a chance to talk about the things that are of great concern for us, and we can talk through each of the different specific items too. But again, just one last push. If you're a taxpayer and you do have children in the schools, the bond we're putting forward that our committee sent forward is to support every school. The bond dollars that would be generated will stay local, and 100% of the bond dollars are going to address the growth and to put the schools and the resources we're going to need there. But again, we can talk about the legislative priorities too, because that's important also.
Well, I don't know how I got this in my hand, but somehow I got a hold of this.
Yeah,
And,
some guy came in. Yeah.
No idea how I got this. So I know that there are, some important things in here. And obviously right now, one of the big deals is school safety. Like
Sure.
you said, we just had the unfortunate situation that just happened south of here. And that's always something that we're going to be dealing with, society, right? It's just, we're a broken society, and there's going to be things like that. But I know that one of the things that I see in here that really stands out, top priority, is school safety. So talk to me about that real quick.
Yeah, and I'll start again with the state funding. The last legislative session was on the heels of the Uvalde incident, as you may recall. And so there was a big push that they had, 30 some odd billion dollars in rainy day funds. And, they said, well, we're going to, put a big investment towards school safety. We'll take whatever they're going to send our way. But the reality is what they gave to school districts and, made a big sale out of it, wasn't even enough to cover a mandate that they put out that there'd be an armed officer at every single school in the state of Texas. And so our board already had the foresight before the mayor, before the governor ever said anything about that we'd already made the decision we were going to do that. And so we were thrilled to know, well, they're going to help fund that. They gave last legislative session $15,000 per school. And then it was $10 a kid. And so doing some simple math here, and I'm an old English teacher, so if I miss it, then let me know. But $15,000 plus $10 a kid for 750 kids, you're coming out to $2,250 if I'm not mistaken, $22,500 if I'm not mistaken. Check my math on that. That doesn't even cover a third of what an officer costs to have an SRO on a campus. Well, they've talked big that they're going to invest in safety and security, and we're going to look to double that. And again, if $22,500 isn't even 1/3 of the cost of an officer, then doubling that's not going to get us there either. So we're going to keep doing what we're going to be doing, and again towards safety and security. Again, knowing that we've got safety and security enhancements in our bond proposal that we're going forward, we would hope that would help us. But again, we went to Austin to advocate on behalf of all schools. I care about every kid in public schools all around the state, and I think our state legislators should do the same. And while you're sitting here talking about investing in private schools with public tax dollars, which is what their voucher program would be doing, again, I've said our state, fund schools first, and then go ahead with your programming. And not one state legislator has taken me up on that, to stand there in the House or to stand there in the Senate to say, look, we'll pass this voucher thing. Let's get school funding taken care of first. And we'll see how the House and Senate come out about things.
So since you're talking about the vouchers and
I'm
all
a little
that stuff,
passionate about this.
yeah,
Brian,
a little bit,
Sorry.
a little bit. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. We need people with passion like that, and you have a perspective that most of us can't have. We just simply can't have that perspective. So you see it very, very clearly from where you're at, and so I'm curious about that. What are well, first of all, let's just step one more step back from where I was going to start. Why do they want the vouchers?
One of the things that I asked that exact same question more last legislative session than this one, but one of the things that the governor has said is that he wants parents to have choice in their schools, and I get that and I understand that, and I think those of us in the public schools would say parents do have choice. Number one, you have a choice for what community you live in, and for those folks that don't have choice, if financially they're not able to pick and choose all the same areas, and they feel like they want to invest in a private school, that choice is out there for families right now. Charter schools are available as a choice. Homeschooling is available as a choice. Parents have that choice right now. In Celina, we aspire to be now and forever that we will be the best choice for families. And I think because we feel the community embrace and the support that we've had from our community, and we hope to have on this bond referendum that's coming forward in 2025, we're able to provide the things that I think will continue to prove that we are the best choice for families. With the statement that parents don't have choice, I'm not following that logic. And if it comes down to just a financial consideration, I understand public dollars going to support schools and communities that are in need. And that's the thing that I say to my reps. When you go and you give an F rating to a school, do you just sit there and point the fingers at that school, or do you recognize that that school is likely in an area that needs support, or that school is likely in a neighborhood, in a community that is needing a lot more attention from our government, or you just want to lump it on the shoulders of the schools? And to say that we need to give those families public dollars so they can invest them into private schools seems counterintuitive for a state legislator to be doing that. And I think the final thing that I would say that I struggle with, not just as a public school official, but as a taxpayer myself, and as someone who believes that our public schools, just like a fire department, just like a police department, they help to make my community good. They make my community feel safe. And you say, well, police and fire is different. No, if we have good schools, that helps our community to be safe. And just knowing that we're going to be investing public dollars into a private school, I just don't understand that. And what happens if that private school doesn't resonate with what I believe in? Shouldn't I have some choice over whether public tax dollars are going into that private school? I could choose not to go to a particular restaurant or store if it doesn't align with what I believe in, right? But when you are taking my public tax dollars and you're putting them into a private entity, I struggle with that. Again, in Celina, we are going to continue to be the best option and the best choice for families. But if a family feels that private school is the better option for them, it seems to me that it should be that they're then taking their own personal funds and putting that into that private school, as opposed to looking to get our tax dollars.
So a long time ago, and I've been alive for a long time, I was in the landscaping and all of that world, and I learned in that the best way to get rid of weeds in a lawn, okay? And this is a terrible example, but I think it's what you're saying, is to invest in and grow the best turf, the best grass you can, and that literally chokes out the weeds. And so if we have a school district that's so amazing and incredible, we'll have no need for private schools here. Is that essentially what I hear you saying?
Well, I think it's a pretty interesting analogy there. It doesn't mean that one won't come along because they say, well, these are great kids, we want to be in that community. And to which I would say, I welcome the competition. We believe in competition, and heck, that's why we do the things we do with our kids. They go out to compete, right? We want them competing at the highest level. But I think something that Jeff was saying to you earlier is that, but then those private schools should have to operate on the same grounds that we are. And I get shaking heads from our reps when I say this, that if they're receiving public tax dollars in any way at all, then they should be busing their kids to that entity. And that's not going to be something private schools would be required to do. If they're receiving public tax dollars in any way at all, then they should be required to allow special needs kids to come into their schools, or limited English language kids to come in their school. That's something they're not going to be required to do. And of course, if we're having to, take a state test and get rated on how our kids do on a one-day test, well, then have those private schools do the same thing. Let's see how well they really are truly performing, and go ahead and put a letter grade on those entities too, that if they're receiving, I would think you'd probably have quite a few private schools or some of the other charter schools and things that might receive those funds say, maybe we don't want to receive.
Yeah, they don't want that. They don't want that introspection, or that they don't want that sunlight shining in those windows, so to speak, because now we're being graded on our performance and how we're doing. But Jeff, talk to me about something, and I don't know if you feel as passionately about this. I'm just gonna
let me calm down for a second over here.
I'm gonna let that one cool down a little bit. That seat, but just from your perspective, even passionate about it or not, I think you could probably respond to this. What about the records that they keep and things like that in a private school versus public? Because every single thing that you do has to be available to the public.
Sure,
because of the tax dollars, right?
Yeah.
So if these, help me if and I may be wrong about this, but if it's a private institution,
I don't have to show you I don't have to open my financial books to you.
Okay, so that's a concern.
Well, it is to me, and I would venture to say that, and I'm pulling this just off the cuff, 90%. 95%. They're probably all on the up and up, and they're great. The people I know that who have had kids go to a private school, they flourish. You know, they're at the top of this, and they go to the finest universities. They do well. But there's some out there that I would venture to say that may not be. I don't know, but I do know that the newspapers are littered with charter schools that will go under every year. You know, they open up one year and they go under the next year.
Right, and to be fair, there may be other reasons that somebody might want to send a child to a private school.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Just sometimes
That's called
I know
parent choice.
Right, absolutely. But what you're saying is that, and I think in a lot of those cases, those parents are probably not going to need to use vouchers and things like that probably anyways. I don't know if I'm way out of my comfort zone talking about this.
Right. It's probably just a nice little bump that helps pay for little Johnny's tuition.
Exactly.
But they didn't need it.
They may take advantage of it if it's available. And I don't know economically if you have to be at certain, like a certain income level in order to qualify. I don't know how that works, and that's probably another podcast.
Just can you pay the bill? If they can,
unless you got a good athlete, then they'll
maybe that's right. They'll give a scholarship.
So we didn't answer a question that you asked. I don't believe that the question was answered of a question you answered earlier. What was Abbott's motive behind this?
Okay, talk to me.
No, I don't know the answer, but I know that it's got to be money. There's money being funded from some donor somewhere who's pushing this.
And we're not sitting here having an Abbott hating party or anything like that.
I absolutely
specifically talking about vouchers.
I love Abbott. I don't understand.
Dr. Tom's sitting here going, no. Maybe I am having it.
No,
I just don't understand this because it's motivated financially somewhere from. And you can't believe everything you read, but some big donor up in Pennsylvania is giving him all this money. He's been driving this for the last 10 years to push these vouchers. I still don't know I know it's financially. I know it's finances. I haven't folled the money to the end.
Gotcha.
I can't figure it out.
I understand.
Well, to the transparency piece of things, governor aside and all that, the one thing too is sitting next to a board member. A lot of private schools also, they conduct their business in closed sessions and behind closed doors. Our meetings are out in public, and we're very purposeful about if it's a financial decision of some kind, we are going to talk about that in open session. They're going to vote on that in open session, and the public can come up and speak to our board members. The public can come up and say to us the things that they like and see and whatnot, or things that they have a problem with too. But you don't have that. You don't see that. And so transparency, and that's the thing. Again. My biggest concern with Governor Abbott's messaging is the thing that I'm only bringing up, and in his State of the Schools address, which you can go look on, our State of the State address. I think it was late January, early February when he spoke it and put it out there on the web for the world to see. One of the things he said in there is that schools need to recognize that they need to learn that they work for the parents, not the other way around. And our public schools, especially here in Celina, but in every public school system I've been a part of, we want to engage as partners with our parents. And when you put that narrative out there that we're, you're starting to, pit one another against each other. I'm speaking on behalf of all the public schools ever, and the 90% of our students that are attending public schools. Take care of us, fund us first. That's my message to Austin. And then, if you're going to go forward with the plans that you're looking to go forward with public tax dollars, then increase the transparency, hold those entities accountable to the same standards we are, and make sure the public is aware of the fact that this is where tax dollars are going and why. And one last thing, move away from the politics of things, is that, to the parents who are going to get a voucher, and this is what some of the state reps said to me down in Austin, is that, they're just getting their tax dollars back to then go invest in a private school, to which I think I'd kind of already spoken to this, the earlier part of my rant there, that, I've thankfully, and knock on wood, this continues, I've never had to have the fire department come to my house to support me, but I'm happy that my tax dollars are going to that because it makes my community better. I've never had to have the police come to my house, knock on wood, keep that, but to know that they're there, and Chief Colson, Chief Brown, the great folks we have in our fire department and in our police department here in Celina, I'm happy for my tax dollars to go to that if it makes my community better.
absolutely. All very, very good and valid points. And I want to step out just a little bit. We've still got a few minutes, so we're good. We have not only the school board stuff is going on right now, meaning how many seats do we have up right now? 2?
Yes,
I think 2 seats up right now. And I can say from an outsider's perspective, the school board seems to work very well together. And it may just be the fact that it's the schools, and maybe that's, just a different tone and a different environment, because, we're all here kind of for the kids, and for city council, sometimes I can be a little different, a little different animal over there. And so the races get a little more contentious. Is that the...
Contentious.
Contentious.
Yeah,
I was close.
You're there, man.
I was close. That's Dallas schools for you
There you
right there.
go.
So that's what I blame that on. Actually,
Dallas schools are great schools. They are great schools. So.
yeah, I always say Dallas schools, but I actually went to Mesquite and Garland schools.
Okay.
So, but anyhow, and it was so long ago. I don't even know if we had English. I think it was Old English back then. But that's they have this thing going on right now where and I'm not going to get into the weeds with you guys about this at all, but it is out there in the community, and so we're asking people to consider a school bond, board seats, city council seats. We're asking for a few things, so they're not walking into there with just, some people walk in with one, they have one thing they care about, but we're asking them to consider many things. And one of the things that's critically important that I've talked about on the show a lot recently is how well the city council, the school board, the school district, the EDC, the different boards, the different commissions, how well the Chamber of Commerce, how well each of these entities are getting along today. And so I'd like to kind of get your opinion on, are we in a pretty good place right now or not?
Yeah, I'd commend our board. They grapple with very hard decisions, but they come out on wanting to be civil with one another, supportive of one another, and ultimately making the best decision for kids and the best decision for the greatest number of kids. And when we, focus on that, anytime that there's been a rough discussion about something, we can recognize that we care about the same things. And so, right. That's his job to lead that, as the board president. I'm a bystander, but certainly we all work together on that. And yes, we're very purposeful with our relationship with the city leadership, and with all the city council members. Everybody that's running for the city council and all the folks that are running for board right now, they're good people who want to serve, like Jeff was talking about, and I think we're all in it for the same thing. So that's a great opportunity here in this community, that our voters should feel good about the fact that the folks that are running for school board, they're running for the same things we all care about, and the folks that are running for city council, from what I can tell, they're wanting to continue to engage with us as a school district and to make sure we're working together with the growth. Because if we don't work together in managing this growth, it's going to be impossible to put yourself in a silo for those things.
So if there was somebody out there who decided that they were kind of not so much in support of this, and maybe they haven't had the opportunity to get a little bit deeper into the details of it, so to speak, what would be the primary reason, in your opinion, both of your opinions, that somebody might not support this bond? Like, what would be the first thing? Like, what do you think? What's the most obvious reason to you that somebody would say, no, I can't support that?
Yeah, I think for some of the things that we've talked about, but I would, that they might have a problem with it. But if they were to ask us and engage with us and look at the literature and see, I think they'd see that they can get answers for the questions that they have.
But what do you think that primary reason, like just at first glance, like, no way? Is it the 2.295? Is it that? Is it the fear of maybe their tax rate going up? What do you think the biggest obstacle is, until someone then gets the information and then they can form a real,
No, it's those unknowns.
It's both of those things. You put a B behind anything and just start to wrap your head around that, and then trying to understand and believe that the transparency that, no, your particular taxes are not going up.
What happens to us if this doesn't pass?
I don't really want to think about that. Because
Dustin, tell me, give me some details.
No,
Paint me a picture.
we're operating on the fact that it's going to pass because we need to be positive about this for the sake of our kids. But anytime any district has experienced a bond that doesn't pass, the thing you need to do is to go back to the community and find out what it was that folks had a problem with. We're being purposeful to ask those questions up front, to the same things you're talking about. And while certainly there are some folks that don't seem to have all the information that might put a thought out there, or put their post out there, we do try to reach out to them and to try to give them information. But we also try to answer the things that we know are might be giving them heartburn. Folks have been very positive to me, so it's hard for me to speak to the things that people don't like about it. I think we just want to make sure that everybody is educated and has a good understanding of what they're going to vote on. Which one thing that we haven't even touched on is there are 2 ballot items on our bond referendum, and I want to make sure that I do speak to that too. That there will be a Proposition A that's going to be the bulk of everything that you see there. But then there is a Proposition B that by law has to be on a separate proposition, which is just for electronic devices for our kids. And that's it's in the literature, it's posted online, and we share it when we go out. That's just $20 million. It's $20 million.
It's very inexpensive.
$20 million out of the whole grand number that is just for learner devices, and that's because a lot of our iPads and our computers are becoming outdated, and we're going to need more for the growth that's coming. And so that has to be a separate proposition. But otherwise, everything else is in the Proposition A. The voters don't have to pick A or B. They're both propositions that the public votes on. So you will have a vote on either for or against Proposition A, for or against Proposition B.
What is the verbiage? Do you know the verbiage that's going to be on the ballot?
It spells it out. It explains what it's going for the infrastructure, and it lists the amount. But as Jeff said earlier, it does say, and this will increase your taxes. And again, that's something that I couldn't get a really good answer from our state reps for why they insist upon that being on there. But
the Vader had negative,
and even the Vader had to have negative
verbiage
on it, and that's not for all entities that are going forward, but for schools it has to be on there. But again, we know our growth will support this bond with our existing tax rate. And again, for those folks that say, well, what if we don't grow? Then we don't need to sell the bonds. We don't sell all the bonds all at one time. We sell them only when we need them, which is good stewards. That's why we have such a high bond rating. It's why our bond rating keeps going up, because the public can see, and our bond supports out there are recognizing that we're being good stewards with the tax dollars, and that we have the growth, and that the growth will help us with this.
So where can you have?
No, I want to make sure that we don't gloss over something he said a moment ago.
We would never gloss over anything.
It was said kind of. Tom just sort of mentioned it, but I wanted to hone in on it. During the the committee meetings, all we ever talked about were buildings for kids.
Yeah.
There is no administration building on here. There is no
big giant pay raise for Dr. Tom.
No, there's
all of a sudden
none of these dollars can go toward pay. That's the thing.
Right.
And there's no stadium. So, but the committee, and this one is from Tom, because they kept saying we need a new administration building, and Tom and the administrative staff were purposeful in saying no. We'll wait till the next one, because this has to pass. We've got to do everything we can to make this feasible for everyone, so we get these buildings on the ground for these kids.
Right on.
And it does not serve our administration at all.
Gotcha.
As far as a physical building. So I didn't want to gloss over that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Is there? We only have like 5 minutes left, and I've got one more thing I want to cover. But is there anything else that you guys would like to share? Say something I missed? Anything that's important? This information is out there. The CISD website?
That would be it. To go to the website, and of course we post things on social media too. If you have any questions at all that aren't being answered for you when you look online, reach out to me. And I've had many folks who do that, and they really appreciate the information. They want to be good informed voters. And again, 100% of these tax dollars stay in Celina. 100% of these tax dollars are just to address the growth and goes into the schools and the supports the buses and all the infrastructure that we're going to need over the next several years as we get up toward that 15,000 student capacity that's coming. And again, if you have any questions about anything or just feel like you're not informed, reach out to us. We're happy to respond.
Jeff, anything else?
My ask would be that they would dig in and find out what they're voting about.
Right.
The candidates, the bond, everything. Don't take someone's word for it. Spend 5 minutes, do your research, and be an informed voter so that when you go to that ballot, you know exactly what you're voting for and why.
Right on. So the last thing I have, and here's that look that my wife would warn you about. This is the fun part.
Okay, good.
We don't have a lot of time for fun today, and in fairness, I should say this to everybody who's watching or listening. I told you guys up front that because of time and the subject and all that stuff, and the fact that we just did an episode back in October, we're probably not going to do anything fun today. And y'all were a little disappointed.
I was very disappointed. That's the only reason I showed up.
We made some of our own fun before we started recording it.
That is true. And we are going to have a little fun. I have one more question for each of you.
Does he go first?
I was going to Tom first.
I think I'm gonna ask Dr. Tom first. Right. Okay. If you woke up tomorrow and you were Jeff Gravely, what would you do if you were Jeff Gravely tomorrow?
I'd shave my head. Why do I have all this hair? It should be sleek and shiny and glowing for the world. I need to.
And Jeff,
why do I have two daughters? I have two sons. Why do I have two daughters?
That would be a weird experience.
If you woke up as a chicken, what kind of chicken would you be?
Exactly.
That's where I was going.
Yeah, almost. If you woke up and you were Dr. Tom, what do you do?
I have no idea.
You don't know?
I have no idea.
There's got to be something that you would do. I mean, you're Dr. Tom now. That's like waking up being Elvis Presley. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, that is. Bald Elvis Presley.
He had to throw
Thanks for not saying bald and fat. I appreciate that.
He was a little large when he died, so no, you're not there. What would I do?
Yeah.
I would try to continue to make this district as absolutely wonderful as it could be.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
He's so nice.
I don't know.
You could have said, I'd head right on over to the Waffle House and get a big old stack of pancakes. I mean, you could have said anything, and you came up with a nice answer.
I know. I thought you were going to ask the chicken question.
He'd take a look at my calendar and say, write email and say, I'm going back to bed.
One thing he does that I don't understand is because Sarah runs his calendar, and I've got some people I know that somebody else runs that calendar. I don't see how they do it.
I know.
I want to know where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there.
Yeah, it's shocking to me to see everything this man does right here. It's crazy. We're very blessed to have him. We're very blessed to have you. Thank both of you for being on the show.
We're blessed to be here. I'm blessed to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being back at the show, and we'll come back again if we need to, right?
Sure.
Can we have fun this next time?
You know what? We said that last time, and
you squelch this one.
Here we are.
We were wanting to have fun this time.
Here we are. But and I'm going to bring it up. I wasn't going to do this, but there's still a tiny little rumor and maybe a possibility that Dr. Tom might.
I need to do that. I would really like to do.
Yeah. I don't really know how to make it happen. The opportunity has sat there for a long time. He just seems to always have something else to do.
Let me get through this whole bond election, and then I'll have
another excuse, because I think I thought more about him doing that because I'm going, hey, can I be there?
Well,
I want to help.
Share what it
No,
is. What is it that we're going to do? What are we even talking about? What is this?
Oh, it'd be fantastic music. It would be in and around, like every episode would be like a new theme, and then music that matches that theme. Maybe a little, good stories, good literature, something. We'd mix in a lot of good stuff. Yeah.
So we're talking about doing a radio show on Celina City Limits.
All right, I got to get on it.
All right,
I'll make it happen.
You heard it right here, guys, and that is Dr. Tom and Jeff Gravely.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.